So, what really makes a great leader? It's a question you hear everywhere, from giant corporations to military units, and even just in our day-to-day lives. Is it just about having a fancy title? Or is it something more? Well, let's get into it. We're going to unpack the core ideas that separate the average boss from a truly great leader.
All right, first things first, let's clear up a massive misunderstanding. There is a huge difference between being a boss and being a leader. See, a boss often just uses their authority to get things done. They point from the back and say, go. But a real leader, they're different. They build up goodwill, they coach their team, they're right there with them saying, let's go. It's this fundamental shift from commanding to inspiring.
And look, this isn't just some feel-good idea. It has a massive impact in the real world. Get this. Research from EntreLeadership found that only 16%, just 16%, of employees felt their last conversation with their leader was actually meaningful. That means a whopping 84% of those leadership moments are just falling flat. That is a huge leadership gap, and that's what we're here to figure out how to fill.
So where do we even begin to build a great leader? Well, it all starts with this incredibly powerful concept, an idea really brought to the forefront by former Navy SEALs Jocko Willink and Leith Babin. You have to think of this as the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. It's called extreme ownership.
So what in the world is extreme ownership? It's a pretty simple idea, but it runs deep. It just means that as the leader, you are responsible for everything. Not just the victories, but every single setback, every mistake, and especially the failures. There's no blaming your team, there are no excuses. The leader owns the result, period. You take complete control by taking complete responsibility.
And this quote right here, this is where that idea leads. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. If your team is underperforming, a real leader doesn't start pointing fingers. They look in the mirror. They ask themselves the tough questions. Where did I go wrong? Did I not explain the mission clearly? Did I not give them the right training or the right tools? It is a seriously demanding standard, but it's the only one that lets a leader actually fix problems at the source.
And this is exactly what that ownership looks like when you put it into action. It's not just some private mindset. You live it out where everyone can see it. A leader doesn't just yell onward from a safe distance. They get out in front and say, follow me. It means if you're asking your team to stay late and grind, you're right there grinding with them. That consistency, that's what builds the kind of trust that you just can't fake.
Okay, so once a leader truly gets that idea of extreme ownership, their whole focus starts to shift. It's not just about what they can do anymore, it's about what they can build. The mission becomes empowering the people around them.
The best leaders, they multiply their impact using something called decentralized command. Look, the goal is not for you to make every single decision. If you do that, you just become a bottleneck. Your team turns into a bunch of people just waiting around for your instructions. The real goal is to create more leaders. You give them the authority to make the calls right there on the front lines. So how do you actually pull that off? Well, it really boils down to 3 key steps. First, you have to explain the why. It's not enough to just give people tasks. Your team needs to understand the big picture. Why is this important? Second, you give your junior leaders real ownership over their part of the plan. And third, and this is crucial, you have to trust them to get it done. Now, this doesn't mean you just walk away. It's a balance. You trust, but you verify. If you want a really powerful example from history, just look at the Battle of Gettysburg. The Union commander, General Meade, made his leader's intent totally clear. We have to hold the high ground no matter what. And because his officers on the ground understood that strategic why, they were able to make huge life-or-death decisions in the heat of battle without having to wait for new orders. That is decentralized command, and it literally changed the course of the war.
Okay, so we've got owning your role and we've got empowering your team. But to get to that next level, the highest level of leadership, you have to master something a lot more subtle. It's this delicate mindset, the balance.
The truth about leadership is that it's almost never black and white. It's a constant tightrope walk between 2 opposing forces that are both important. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin call this the dichotomy of leadership. The real skill isn't picking one extreme or the other. It's knowing how to find that perfect balance for whatever situation you're in.
So here's the first one. To be a good leader, you also have to be a good follower. And that means being able to listen, to take direction, and to really get behind the mission from the leaders above you. But you also have to be ready to step up and take command in a heartbeat when the situation calls for it.
All right, next up. A leader has to be disciplined, right? Procedures and standards are what create consistency and efficiency. But you can't be so rigid that you stick to a plan that's clearly falling apart. You've got to have the wisdom to know when to follow the process and when the reality on the ground is screaming at you to adapt.
Oh, this one is huge. Humility might just be the single most important quality in a leader. You have to be able to check your ego at the door, admit when you mess up, and actually listen to good ideas no matter where they come from. But being humble does not mean being a doormat. A leader also has to be able to stand their ground and push back when something is going to hurt the team or the mission.
And finally, there's this constant dance between the micro and the macro. A leader has to be able to zoom in on the tiny details to make sure things are running smoothly. But they also have to be able to pull back, detach, and see the whole strategic battlefield. If you get lost in the weeds, you lose control. But if you can't see the big picture, you're going to lose the war.
So we've gone through the foundation, the mission, and that delicate mindset. But now it's time to bring all this home and talk about the most important person here, and that's you.
And this right here is probably the biggest takeaway of all. I want you to forget about organizational charts for a second. Forget about who has what title. Leadership is not a job title. It's not a position you're handed. It is a choice you make, a responsibility you decide to pick up no matter what your rank is. Think about it. Whether you're talking with a coworker, a family member, a friend, every single one of those interactions is a chance to put these ideas into practice. It's a chance to take ownership, to empower someone, to listen, and to inspire. You're already a leader in so many areas of your life, maybe without even realizing it. And really, that brings us to the final thought. And it's not an answer, it's a question for you to take with you. After thinking about all this stuff, from taking extreme ownership to finding that perfect balance, the only thing left to figure out is this: how are you going to lead today?